Welcome to Corporate Competitor, presented by Forbes Books, the podcast where the world's greatest executives share how the lessons they learned playing sports shaped their leadership. After more than 200 episodes with CEOs and senior leaders like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy, Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, one thing is clear. Whether they were inducted into their Sports Hall of Fame or hung up their cleats after high school, sports has been a powerful, shared foundation for success. I'm your host, Don Yeager, and each week, in partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, we bring you genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with influential leaders so you can apply their insights to elevate your leadership. With me for today's episode is Hanneke Faber, CEO of Logitech and a leader known for inspiring growth within major global companies like Procter & Gamble and Unilever. Originally from the Netherlands, Hanneke was a national champion diver and later earned a full athletic scholarship to the University of Houston, where she excelled. This experience shaped her people-first, purpose-driven approach to leadership. She's been recognized as one of the most influential women in business today, and I'm looking forward to learning from her and diving into her history. Make sure to check out corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/notes for my notes from today's session, including my favorite quotes and reflection questions.
You got to fill the scrapbook. Invest time in doing things together, getting to know each other. When I was in college, I was an individual athlete in diving, but I was part of a swim and dive team. We would go everywhere on the van, and I learned there's only two kinds of music, country and Western. That's part of filling the scrapbook. Celebrations are part of filling the scrapbook. When you do those things together, you start to know each other, you have shared memories. I find it easier to win together.
Hanneke, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I know you grew up in the Netherlands and you were a 10-time national springboard diving champion, finalist in the World Championships in Madrid when you were only 17 years old. In fact, I just watched a YouTube clip from the 1987 World Diving Cup just a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
To go headfirst off a board, flip multiple times before hitting the water, you must have a unique relationship with fear, risk.
Yeah. Diving can be a scary sport, especially when you're doing platform diving that's 10 meters or 33 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
And when you have to do 2.5 somersaults or sometimes with twists off there, that is scary. And one time is the first time for any new dive. That is a lot of adrenaline. You mess up, you're going to hit the water at 30 miles an hour, and it's like hitting a brick wall.
Wow.
Yeah. The bruises are not pretty when things don't go well. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often because you're obviously super prepared before you go and try something new, especially off the platform. That big, scary dive off the 10-meter, you break it up into little pieces. You don't just walk up there and do a reverse 2.5 or something. You start on the trampoline. You don't go into water.
I never knew divers started on the trampoline.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
And then you work up to the 10 meters. So you're going to start off the 5-meter. And unless you get that really, really right, you're never going to go up there. Not many things are scary after that. I'm pretty fearless. This is true in life as well. You know, when you want to do something big and scary at work, you work up to it.
Right.
Today, I have this big, scary job. I'm the CEO of Logitech, but I didn't start there right out of college. You work up to it. People ask me, like, before a big presentation to a big crowd, they're like, aren't you nervous? I just think back to standing up on the platform. So I'm not really nervous. It's helped me move industries, move countries, changing strategies. All of that can be scary in work, but it's never as scary as that 10-meter platform.
Can you share a memory from diving where things went swimmingly or maybe not, where you took a lesson that you still think about?
Yeah. If you want different results, you need to do different things. At the University of Houston, where I dove, our goal was always to be in the top 20 teams in the country for swimming and diving. Individually, that meant that you would contribute by scoring at NCAAs and becoming an All-American. I knew that goal, and our coaches would work with us on what we needed to do to get there. It's things like learning new dives and making finals at conference and regionals and different elements of what you needed to do during the season. The bad part for me was I didn't make it freshman year. I didn't make it sophomore year. I didn't make it junior year.
You weren't contributing to the big goal.
No, I got really close every year, but I kept missing. And that was tough. My coaches did a great job giving me feedback, adjusting my dive list, adjusting strength training, doing things differently. And they always made me feel that even if it wasn't this year, success would come because we kept getting better at new dives and in other meets. And senior year, finally, thank God, I became an All-American, both athletic All-American and academic All-American. I contributed to the team. And those NCAAs in Indianapolis just felt so great. So if you want different results, you need to adjust year on year and keep the faith. That's true in business as well.
Yeah.
Here at Logitech, we have a big internal ambition and purpose. We've broken that up into different strategic choices and work streams. We're making changes in people and structure to make sure that we have the best casting and the best setup to be successful. Just like in sports, you need that clear goal. It may not work perfectly the first time. Keep adjusting. You will get there.
One of the things about that story, you talk about those first 3 years, you're probably pretty amazing. You're just not right there. And right there is what matters.
Yeah.
How do you keep from becoming dispirited? Was there something that the coaches did or said that maybe you hold on to?
Yeah. Coaching is such a critical thing. And I was blessed with really great coaches, which honestly is not a given in sports like diving and gymnastics, as we now all know, where girls especially start really young. But I was blessed throughout my career, way back in Holland when I was in middle school and high school. A guy called Frans van de Konijnenburg, fantastic coach.
I was going to say that name exactly like that, but I didn't want to show off.
Yeah, there you go. And then in college, I had two legendary coaches who both still coach, Dave Parrington and Jane Figueiredo. Both are absolutely legendary US and international diving coaches. All three of them always kept the faith. In diving, you get feedback every day, hundreds of times. Every dive, they tell you what you did wrong. But the best coaches balance to focus on what you do well, and they make sure you do more of it, and what you need to do better. And they pick you up even when you're having a really bad day. I remember a meet in Austin, Texas. I think I was a freshman, big meet. And I had a terrible dive early on in that meet. But it was also a meet in which we had new suits. This was like a big deal, right? New University of Houston suits. I got out of the pool and I was pretty dejected. And Dave said to me, well, if you're not diving well, at least you're looking good. That kind of humor of this is not the end of the world picks you up. And guess what? The next dive was a lot better.
That's awesome.
Coaches play a huge role. And again, that translates to business. Probably the biggest part of my role today is people and coaching. I run a big business, lots of people. There's no way I can do everything that needs to be done, probably almost nothing. But what I can do is make sure I've got the right people in the right places, coach them and spend time with them and really listen to them in terms of what they need. What obstacles can I take away? How can I help them be their best self? It's easy when you just have to be a cheerleader because everything is going swimmingly well. Unfortunately, that happens some of the time as well. But it's most important when things aren't going so well. And then you sit down together and you figure out, okay, what do we need to do differently? And I've been blessed with great coaches actually in my business life as well, real role models. I'm thankful to Paul Pullman, who I worked for at Unilever, as well as Alan Jobe, both great coaches, great people. Paul, really good at thinking big and purpose and sustainability, very inspirational. When I worked at Ahold Delhaize, a big grocery retail company, I had a great guy, the CEO, a guy called Dick Boer, who was all about improving every day. And then also in my P&G years, Jenna Drosos, who's just retiring now as the CEO at Signet, she was great in design. She was a great people coach. She was a real role model as a woman early on.
She also played basketball.
I know that.
Another corporate competitor.
That's right. And you'll see that in a lot of great female leaders.
It is so true. So your coaches at Houston, you caught their attention? and you earned a full scholarship to University of Houston. It's pretty amazing. And when you got the offer, you actually had to look Texas up in an atlas.
Yes, that is true.
Come on, Texas. They're thinking the whole world revolves around us.
Yeah, yeah.
How does that happen?
I grew up in Holland, which is a small country the size of Rhode Island. It's best known for tulips and windmills and bikes.
Right.
It's a long ways from Texas.
Big weather change too.
Definitely. So I started diving obviously there in Holland as a young girl. When I was 17, I went to the World Championships in Madrid representing Holland. That's where the coaches at U of H saw me because they were on the US team coaching. I finished in the top 20 then, and Dave Parrington sent me a letter and he offered me a full scholarship to the University of Houston. I had never been to the US, let alone to Texas. I didn't really speak much English at the time either. So literally, my parents and I opened up the atlas and looked up, where is Texas? Oh, well, it was in the orange zone. That means good weather. I was like, yeah,
I'm out.
I'm game. So I went sight unseen, which is hard to believe.
Did you really? You accepted a scholarship sight unseen. You didn't even go for a visit.
No, no, no. I mean, honestly, my parents would not have been able to afford to send me to America.
Right.
And it was fortunate that I landed with a great coach, wonderful school, which also happened to have an excellent honors college, which I joined after my first semester. I had a really good diving career, but I also got a bachelor's and an MBA for free.
Did you really?
Yeah, I graduated in 3 years and then I started a master's in my fourth year and then got an NCAA postgraduate scholarship to finish up. I learned a ton about the world. So I'm really forever grateful for that experience.
And look at the pathway it set you on. But as I look back at your diving career, this is incredible. I saw that you spent on some days as many as 4 hours a day in the pool.
At least 4. Yeah.
More than that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I would think you'd be a big raisin at the end of that.
Oh, raisin, but also your hair turns green from the chlorine. So we weren't looking too good. I think they may have fixed that now, but anyway.
Well, you certainly have.
Yeah.
But I saw an interview that you did recently where you talked about your diving journey mirrors leadership. You said it's not glamorous, it's hard work. You may occasionally get a chance to show up and everybody gets to notice you, but there's a lot of things you do that nobody pays attention to.
Yeah. Like high level sports, business is really hard work that happens out of the spotlight. If I think back to my diving days, especially before I came to Houston in Holland, I probably already spent 10,000 hours in the pool as a teenager. I would ride my bike to the pool, half-hour bike ride there and a half-hour bike ride back once or twice a day.
Think about that.
Yeah, it wasn't just a diving, it was also getting there and getting back, often in the dark. It was pretty cold. That's really unglamorous, I can tell you. By the way, in college, we had 6 a.m. dive practices every morning. I can tell you as a student, that's not the funnest thing. Why do you do it? Because there's the thrill of improving, of growing, of hitting some great dives every once in a while, of a few wins every once in a while. It was really gratifying, all that hard work. You know, people think now, oh, you're a CEO, that's very glamorous. Well, I tell you, I live in California, but my business is global. So most days start in the office at 6 a.m., which means I'm up at 4:30. I feel like I'm back into diving days.
Well, at least you don't have to ride your bicycle.
No, that's right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. So you do it for similar rewarding results. You improve, you grow, you hit a few home runs, you get a few wins as a team. It's actually quite stunning how similar those paths are. And really, actually, also like at Logitech, you know, we have a big gaming business, esports, they call it these days.
My son knows.
Yeah.
He was very excited. You're the first CEO I've had on that he's been really jacked about listening to.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear that. So, pro gamers are a bit like pro athletes. You should probably get one of our big esports athletes on your show at some point because it's been fascinating to learn about esports athletes. They literally game and train 10 to 12 hours a day.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, they also put in those 10,000 hours, but now esports are going to be in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles.
Which is equally crazy to me.
Yeah.
But skateboarding was too. So, I mean, you know, what do I know?
Yeah.
Breakdancing. Who knows what's an Olympic sport anymore?
That's right. Still, again, those parallels. And I have to admit, I was not a big gamer. I'm still not a big gamer. But being an athlete has helped me understand some of what these gamers do and why they do it and how they do it.
I've read an awful lot. As long as they use a Logitech mouse and keyboard on the way there, then I'll have more respect for them.
That's right.
You spent 21 years at Procter& and Gamble.
Hmm.
One of my favorite interviews on this podcast has been with your longtime colleague, Bob McDonald, one of the great leaders of our time.
Yeah.
You also spent 6 years at Unilever. You've been at Logitech a little over a year. And you said that, like sports, the consumer goods industry is fast paced, it's competitive, and it requires strong teamwork. The teamwork part is one I wanted to kind of dig in because many people look at diving, for example, as an individual sport.
Hmm.
But as you said, you're part of a team, you score as a team. How do you, as a leader, inspire great teamwork, especially within a global environment like you have? Walk me through how you, as a leader, are building better teamwork at Logitech.
Again, I think there's quite a few parallels. I talked about having stretching goals as a team. In business, it starts from that. You got to define where you want to go together, and that has to be a little beyond what you think is possible. Then you got to work the plan together of how you're going to get there.
Right.
The team dynamic at Logitech or before that at P&G or at Unilever is super important. I am not at all a believer in the leader just setting the goals and a small group deciding on the strategy. Co-creation with a large group is really key because then everyone's bought in, has played a role in deciding how we're going to get there, not just where we're going to go. I only joined Logitech in December of last year. So I came from another industry. I came from another company. There's a lot that I didn't know. It was a prerogative that I worked with lots of people to decide on the strategy. We quickly got to work. In fact, in my very first week, we started working on our goal and strategy with my leadership team, the top 15 people in the company. And we worked pretty fast to create what we called a minimal viable product of our ambition, our goals, and the strategic choices we were going to make. And we put those on one page. And it took us a couple months to do that. Then we invited the entire company, all 7,000 people, for a session in which we as a leadership team said, this is our MVP, our minimal viable product. We actually did these sessions twice because of different time zones.
Yeah.
We're in more than 100 countries.
7,000 people, 100 countries.
Yeah. And we said, hey, now please go away in the next 24 hours. All of this was very, very quick in your team, your smaller teams, and then present back to us 3 things you like about our MVP and 3 things that you think should change or things you would add. Teams around the company did that, many, many, many of them. 24 hours later, we did 2 more sessions in which 44 teams from around the world. So we didn't get to actually all of them, but we got a pretty good cross section. Presented back for 5 to 10 minutes, and they said, hey, here's 3 things we really like about this strategy going forward. And here's 3 things that we don't like or where we think you should change. It was incredibly helpful to see the themes that emerged and then to make change to that strategy or our MVP. We made the last changes and we aligned it with the board. And by April, we were able to talk about it, including with the street. And the great thing is we didn't then have to deploy it throughout the company. I'm not a big believer in deploying things down many levels. Let me tell you this, let my direct report tell his direct reports. Everyone had a chance to be part of the creation.
Mm.
So it was pretty straightforward to then put it into motion.
One thing that jumps out at me is the idea that you challenge them. You're a brand new CEO.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know you from Adam's house cat.
Yeah.
And you are suddenly asking them, here's a document. Tell me 3 things you don't like about it. I mean, I get the 3 things you do, but there's a level of vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
And then they have to believe they can actually really offer you 3 things to change.
Yeah. But we have such talented people around the world that the quality of the feedback was really, really high. And then, of course, it does come down to leaders, me and my leadership team, to say, okay, what are we going to take on board and what are we not? People appreciate that as well. We couldn't take everything on board. It would be a 50-page strategy, which is not helpful.
Which is not a strategy.
Yeah, it's not a strategy, exactly. And some of the things, honestly, I didn't agree with. But I think our people really appreciated the clarity of those decisions then as well. And when they saw the final strategy, they certainly saw a good amount of their feedback reflected, and not everything, but that's okay.
And in that moment alone, you're creating a level of Wow, they asked for feedback, they took feedback, and they did something with it. It wasn't just an empty exercise.
No, no, no. I wanted their feedback. They all at that point knew more about our business than I did. It was super, super helpful.
So, I had the chance to watch a little bit of a, Logitech fireside chat that you had recently, and you had this great line in there. Every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Doesn't get any more bold than that. By the way, if we're getting bad results, it's because we're perfectly designed to be a bad result company.
I'll first say I didn't come up with the line, but I do like the line a lot. It's from one of the consultants, the OPM model. Basically, it's a belief that indeed every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. And if you're not getting the results you want, you probably need to change some things in your organization. So, what we've done at Logitech after we defined the set of strategic choices we were going to follow for the years ahead, we then looked at our organization and we said, is the structure fit for the strategy we want to deliver? And of course, there were quite a few things, and that can be people, structure, tasks, culture that weren't a perfect fit. So we're now in the process of optimizing basically the organization for the strategy we decided on. And it's super important to do it in that order. Changing an organization without knowing what you want to achieve is a recipe for disaster.
I'm looking back at the note I wrote a minute ago about what you learned in the pool as a young diver, and you said if you want different results, you do different things.
Absolutely.
You could have been a consultant back then if you wanted to.
Yeah.
What advice would you give us, leaders who are trying to maybe follow a pathway, learn something from a conversation like this? A nugget of learning that you would teach me on how I can learn from that journey that you went on?
There's some nuggets as a leader and maybe even as a parent.
Oh, there we go. We've had a lot of great responses to parent conversation.
And it's about winning and losing over time. You set the strategy, you know where you want to go, but it's not always going to go right the very first time.
Right.
In diving, I have my wins, but I also have my losses. I was at a meet in Vienna in Austria as a teenager. It was one of my first diving meets on that 10-meter platform, 33 feet up in the air.
That's a long way.
Oh boy, it was outdoors too. And
Oh,
as a diver, you're always spotting the water to know where you are because you're flipping and twisting. And I was new on platform in any case, but I had never done an outdoor meet. It was my first outdoor meet in Holland. We always dove indoors because of the weather. And my seventh dive, I'll never forget it. It was a back 1.5 with 2.5 twists off the 10-meter. I was spotting, but I confused the sky with the water.
oh no.
I tell you, the result was not pretty. It was painful.
When the water found you, it wasn't the sky.
Exactly. The water found me. I got zeros. The dive was a failed dive. It was terrible. But I had to get up there and do one more dive. Life goes on.
And you mentioned, I mean, when you hit the water at 30 miles an hour, the bruises are real.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the bruises are real.
And you got to get up and do one more dive after that.
You got to get up and do another dive after that. So, as a leader, you win some, but you're also going to lose some. That market share isn't always going to increase. Your big innovation isn't always going to work the first time. And you can't even control everything. The fact that the sky and the water are the same color of blue. So, I always try to tell myself and my team that we focus on what we can control. There's lots of things that you can control. And if you continue to work on those and break big goals up into small pieces. Practice those hard enough and they start going your way. In the end, you will get there. But the path is not going to always be easy.
All right. As the father of two teenagers, what do you got for me there?
As a parent, it's so important to encourage kids to play sports,
Mm,
and especially girls.
mhm.
Too often, we put our sons into sports and we put our daughters into piano and ballet. Nothing wrong with piano and ballet, but you perform. You don't compete necessarily.
Mm.
You can't win and lose. And it is so important to learn that you win and you lose. And it's okay. You lose, you have that horrible dive, but you pick yourself up.
And you got to climb 33 feet up and do it again.
Yeah. You go back up there for your last dive. Parents, especially parents of girls, please, please, yes to piano and ballet, big fan, but also some soccer, some swimming, whatever. Learning how to win and learning how to lose is so important in life.
You know, The way this entire podcast began, and many people who have listened to it for a long time have heard me tell this story, is that I read a story several years ago, an Ernst& Young research project done for ESPNW, that said that 92% of the women who work in the C-suite of Fortune 500 companies today have a history in sports, and 54% of them played sports collegiately.
Yeah.
Think about, it's hard enough to get there. If there's some commonality, if there's something that you can do that will help give you a competitive advantage, take it.
Totally. And I'm not surprised by those statistics. We don't all have to be Olympic champions, but playing middle school sports, playing high school sports, it just is a great preparation for life. And it's fun too. What else can we wish for?
That's right. So you've been part of teams, you built teams, you're building an extraordinary one at Logitech today. One of the things that we ask almost every guest, because we're fascinated by it, is that I think the word teams is actually often inappropriately used in corporate world. We talk about our team, and the truth is what you really have are a bunch of independent contractors who just happen to have the same business card, doing their own thing. There's not really team chemistry, team environment.
Mm-hmm.
If you were coaching one of us to become a team leader within your organization, and you give us a group of people and you're trying to teach us how to pull that group together to go do something special,
Mm-hmm.
coach me on how to become a leader of a team.
I call it filling the scrapbook. To really become a team, you got to fill the scrapbook. You got to invest time in doing things together, getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that comes from swimming and diving. When I was in college, I was an individual athlete in diving, but I was part of a swim and dive team. We were in Texas. It was the days of the Southwest Conference. We would go everywhere on the van.
Yeah.
And I learned there's only two kinds of music, country and Western. So, which to a Dutch girl was news.
Oh, you didn't listen to country and Western?
No, I never even heard any country and Western, but trust me, on those 7-hour trips, I learned a lot about country and Western, but that's filling the scrapbook.
Filling the scrapbook. I've never heard that phrase. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it's true in business as well. And I've only been at Logitech 1 year now, but traveling together because we're such an international company, going to India together as a leadership team or parts of the leadership team, going to China together. I was just in Minnesota this week with my US team. That's part of filling the scrapbook. Celebrations are part of filling the scrapbook. We had a huge Halloween bash at the office here last week. Chinese New Year for our businesses in China and Taiwan are a big, big deal. When you do those things together, you start to know each other. You have things to talk about. You have shared memories. And I find it easier to win together.
Wow. I got to tell you, ask that question 220 times. No one has ever come close to that. Filling the scrapbook is perfect. It's visual and it completely makes sense. That idea that when you do things together, you create shared memories. I've said all the time as an athlete, you don't remember the wins or the losses, or sometimes you do, but what you really remember are the things you did together.
Yeah.
It's the locker room time. It's the van time. It's the country and Western.
Yeah. What's that song? Lubbock, Texas in the rearview mirror. Oh boy, we saw quite a bit of that.
As long as Texas Tech could be in your rearview mirror, I'm sure that was good. So in business, balancing ambitious goals with realistic expectations is also crucial. You talk about some of the incredibly ambitious things you built into your strategy sessions early, but at the same time, there are headwinds, there's geopolitical challenges, there's elections and all kinds of crazy things that happen. How do you manage that balance as a leader?
External focus. Don't just look inside because lots of things can happen around you that will affect your business and that you can't necessarily control. We try to make sure we understand what's happening with the communities we operate in around the world, what's happening with our investors, what's happening with our customers, our consumers, our employees. That's part of strategy development, but you also have to keep that fresh. It's also in real time and then be prepared.
Oh, heck yeah.
Different things may happen after the US elections. So we have different scenarios in place.
That's got to be hard. You would love it to be very linear, but it's anything but.
Absolutely. And the clock speed of all these things is also constantly increasing. I tell my team today is the slowest day of the rest of your lives.
Whoa.
Which is a scary thought, but it's true.
Wow. That actually, that frightens me.
Yeah, but it's true. Think back to even 5 years ago, things were not moving as fast as they are today.
Isn't that true? I had the CEO of Delta on, and I mean, when he started talking to me about all the things he has to think about, what's going to happen in the world tomorrow, and what do we not know, and what could that mean to an entire organization with 120,000 employees? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I marvel.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by the concept of momentum.
Hmm.
Most of us who love sports, you often feel like you can see it, feel it. Momentum shifts in the way things are going. But I believe it's also true in business.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's a moment that helps propel you or even your opponent into a better place.
Yeah. What I'm more interested in probably is what can you do to create new momentum when you don't have it?
Mhm.
When I came into Logitech, actually, they'd been declining for 2 years.
Or reversing momentum is a real deal.
Yeah, reversing momentum, changing momentum. And you can go back to some previous experiences. Wow, how did I change momentum back in my sports days? My senior year, I really was going to make All American because I'd missed it the previous three.
Right.
Halfway through that season, I was at a meet at SMU in Dallas,
Uh,
and I hit the board on a dive on the 1 meter. I hit the board with both hands, and it was pretty gruesome because all my nails stood up straight after hitting the board, which you don't
Oh,
really want to think about. Eee.
no, like that hurts just even talking.
Exactly. It still hurts me just thinking about it. That was a little bit of a crisis, but my coach and I decided that that was off the 1 meter, and 1 meter was my weakest event anyway. So we decided that given that accident, I would focus on 3 meter and 10 meter for the rest of the season.
Just forsake the one that had just given you all this pain.
Yes, exactly. That was seemingly a crisis, but it actually helped me reverse momentum on the 3 meter and the 10 meter.
Yeah.
And I think in business, sometimes people say crisis is a terrible thing to waste, and that's true. So, momentum, sometimes you need to reverse it. Don't waste a crisis to do that.
Wow. I like that. It's what do you do when it appears that everything is going the other direction?
Yeah.
How do you flip the script? How do you change the story?
Yeah.
A big part of that is, as a leader, the story you tell.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to tell you, I have loved every second of my very first interview with a world class diver. Thank you so much for sharing some of those stories. And my fingernails are not the same right now, but I'm better because I got an hour with you. I'm so grateful, Hanneke,
Oh,
for being a corporate competitor.
thank you. Thank you. And I realize I've told a lot of horror stories about diving actually throughout this.
No, but we got you too. You were an All American. We got that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, not just about me, but this really is a fun sport and you don't hurt yourself all the time. So I hope very many young kids go into it.
Well, if we waited 4 years to get a diver on our podcast, it couldn't have gotten any better than Hanneke Faber. What an incredible conversation. What a great leader. I'm taken by her leadership. But I have to tell you, first off, I loved Fill the Scrapbook. If you want to lead well, fill the scrapbook, invest time in getting to know each other. I loved her examples. You're on this diving team and you're on a van going all across the Southwest as part of her competitions, learning to sing those two American genres, country and Western. And then she talked about today, all the holiday celebrations, the Chinese New Year, Halloween, the way that they build memories, fill the scrapbook together as a team. That allows a bond that is hard to break and is actually so much more attractive to many people than what it is that you necessarily can pay them. Sometimes it's more important that they are in the circle of people that they feel connected to. I love that. The second takeaway was the importance of breaking big, scary things into small pieces. You don't climb a 10-meter tower, dive off and do all those twists and turns and things she talked about without having practiced it. The small pieces are how you build up. I had no idea that you start up on a trampoline if you're doing some of these things. All of the ways that you make your way to the top is important that it be broken into small pieces. And then finally, the last one about controlling what you can control. When she told the story about that dive in Vienna, because it was outdoors, very unusual for her at that stage of her life and career. As she was making her way down, she was confused between the sky and the water. The coloring was so close to each other. And so she hit the water awkwardly and painfully. When you hit the water at 30 miles per hour, it leaves a mark. I can believe that. But the point being that she learned out of that failure how to recognize what it is you can control and then go to work on those things. Control what you can control, stay focused, and how extraordinary that lesson is. Painful, but extraordinary. Hanneke Faber was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Feedback helps us spread the insights of our guests to a wider audience. It actually increases our ratings. Thank you so much for those who have done so in the past. And catch new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe at corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to be the first to get a chance to listen. And as a thank you gift, I will send you a chapter from one of my best-selling books. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is @DonYaeger, DonYaeger. And until next week, I appreciate you.